Stapler ready? Stand by. Six. Damn it. Gotta be better than that. I'm running out of room. Stand by. 20, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is the camera on? Oh, crap. Do you guys practice stapling for speed? I'm your Huckleberry. All right. Talking about staplers today, guys. Got to mark them up. So when you and your shooting buddies are done, at the end of the day, they make it to the right range bag. So if you're going to use a little something like a black Sharpie to mark your stuff, perfect. Some type of tape or whatever the case is, great. Today's video, though, is about staple lengths. Staple lengths, when you go to the store, let's just say Ace Hardware store, and you go to pick up a stapler, you're going to have some options, and there's a ton of different options. And here is kind of the guide for staple lengths. And I'm going from a 1/4 inch, which are these ones here, the T50, and these are the item 504s. These are the 1/4 inch ones. And then I got some T50s, 508s, 1/2 inch ones. It shows that there's a 1/4 inch, 5/16, 3/8, and 1/2 inch, all the way up to 9/16 the length of staple. But you might say, well, what size do I really need? It's going to depend on what you're shooting and what you're stapling into. So if you have a nice tough piece of wood that's pretty dense, you know, like some pine, that's for these we use 1.5 inch by 1 inch for the uprights for the cardboard targets. And this is kind of where it gets a little tricky, is if you go to try to use 1/4 inch staples with using cardboard, you're going to end up needing to use a lot, or you're going to end up needing to basically get frustrated if the wind's blowing or whatever the case is. I prefer using like 1/2 inch or something definitely larger than 1/4 inch. But for the most part, depending on how many stores you go to, they don't have every selection. You'll see the 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch. But they don't usually have the full spectrum unless you can go to a good store that has stuff like that. But for today's quest, right, we're going to talk about the 1/2 inch compared to the 1/4 inch. If you're going to shoot paper targets, like paper plates or just regular paper onto a pre-built wall, 1/4 inch is going to work just perfectly fine, unless it's very you know, the wood's not dense enough where you can get a good bite into it. You'll have to definitely go up in length for that. But here's an idea. I'm trying to figure out what's what here. I believe this one's the 1/4 inch. Now, if it's a paper plate, it's definitely going to hold. Here's the problem, though. If you're going to run cardboard, it's probably not going to last because there's not enough penetration in the wood for it to work. So that would be an option and a reason to have different sets of staples. You don't want to put in 1/2 inch staples into wood and then you end up with a bunch of this. And that's kind of the problem we're having with a lot of the range wood, is because after a month or so, all these staples from you know, putting targets on, you end up with a bunch of staples that are sticking out. Then when you go to put the new staple on, it's basically nothing there. But with the 1/2 inch, it'll reach through and still get over all those staples. So something to think about. Kind of a silly video per se, but I think a lot of times people get to the to the range and go, well, what size should I get? So with that said, if you're shooting something thin, like basically just paper, 1/4 inch should work. But if you're gonna shoot stuff where you're doing like targets made of cardboard, you're definitely gonna want to bring it up a notch.
Arrow stapler, best stapler ever. Grand stapler
Ever. I'm your Huckleberry.